Hi, everyone. My name's Roxanne, and we're back again with another episode of Astrology Chat. This is actually our third conversation that we're having with Millie from Astro Consciousness. And today we're going to be talking about the third and final eclipse in this season that we've been talking about. So the last two episodes have been about the two other eclipses. And now we're going to be talking about the one that is happening, that is actually tomorrow, Millie?
Yeah, tomorrow night.
Yeah. Tomorrow night. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and then kind of connect all of these eclipses together and then what you might be seeing going forward. So I'm going to let Millie jump in, introduce herself a little bit for those who might be new and seeing us for the first time. And then we'll jump into the rest of that.
Hi, everyone. Like Roxanne said, I'm Millie. I am the founder of Astro Consciousness. I am an astrologer and a spiritual life coach. And it's been such a pleasure to speak to Roxanne, who's also my best friend, about something that we both love. But more than anything, that is, I feel, helpful to everyone because everyone should be aware of the energy going on and how that plays out in your personal lives. I've always said it, one of the best things of astrology is that it puts names to things that we don't always understand. And it validates a lot of what we go through and the cycles that we experience in our lives. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is so huge. Just being able to put like a name to what's going on. Right. And a sense of understanding to like, why am I feeling this way? Or why are all these crazy things happening to me this week, And then you find out that, it's not just you. Other people are experiencing maybe not the exact same thing, but similar situations. And a lot of that has to do with what's going on in the sky. Right. And that was something that our ancestors knew and followed it. And without, their calendars in place and clocks in place, the Mayans created their own calendars based on the movements of the sky. And they understood how much that had an impact and effect on us. And that was all they had to go by. So they really utilized that and were very genius in their design and very aligned with what was accurate, and really tracking the calendar and the days and the months in an accurate way.
So I want to point out this week, I feel like I say this every single week, but this week was so crucial. This week was so crucial in terms of information coming out, different stories coming out, as I'm sure we can see. And what's interesting is that it was quite a feminine week, The energy was rather feminine of some of the stories that were really highlighted this week. And it's so interesting to watch how this is unfolding. So one of the events that happened this week was on Wednesday, if you hear fireworks.
Is that fireworks?
That's fireworks. That's right.
Here. I thought that was like the speaker on my earplugs.
No, that is fireworks.
Maybe we could talk about how fireworks are like tied into people are so desperate to go out. What's funny is like so many people are complaining about there being more fireworks. And to be honest, in my neighborhood, there's been less fireworks than normal because my neighborhood just goes off every year. With the dogs and stuff, I can't even leave my house on the 4th of July because I'm afraid my house is going to burn down.
Yeah.
And neighbors, their fireworks have actually hit the roof of my house before. And then of course the dogs, just are so stressed out and so much anxiety. But anyways, so we hear it. I'm sure everybody can relate because apparently now it's not just my neighborhood. Like everybody's doing fireworks.
You just kind of have to bear it,
At noon, because that makes
sense. Exactly. Anyway, so where I was, on Tuesday, June 30th, it was the midway point of our current Mercury retrograde cycle. So just to recap a little bit, Mercury in its simplest form is the planet of cognitive thought and communication. Okay. When it goes into a retrograde cycle, it doesn't literally move backwards. Planets don't do that. And I don't think that any astrologer has ever said that. But what happens is that the energy in terms of communication and cognitive thought and even electronics, for instance, kind of slows down. And we talked about this before, that the point of slowing down, particularly when it comes to communication and thought, is to place emphasis on paying attention, not just to ourselves, but to one another, which is something that we rarely do.
So could you, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but when you have a chance, if you could translate a little bit of that in Spanish, just because I thought that was important and want to make sure, people are able to follow with us.
Okay. So Mercury being retrograde in Cancer, it's a really, Cancer is a feminine sign. It's ruled by the moon. It signifies the mother. And so what happens is that with that cycle, we're forced to go within, or at least that's the intention, to go within and see how we can nurture ourselves, right? How we can nurture ourselves in a different way, create a new sense of home, and in turn, how we can do that for another. So you see it in a bigger spectrum when we need to have a lot more compassion for how we're processing everything we're seeing, and compassion for who we're seeing is directly experiencing everything we're seeing, if that makes sense. Okay. Estaba explicando que el martes 30 de junio tuvimos un alineamiento donde el Sol y Mercurio se juntaron en su retrogradación de Mercurio. Mercurio ha estado retrógrado por ya 2 semanas y le faltan 2 semanas más para salir de esa fase. Y lo que eso significa es que en términos de comunicación, de cómo nos comunicamos con otras personas, cómo nos comunicamos con nosotros mismos en nuestras mentes, eso ha caído en modo de revisión para que nosotros podamos entender no solo cómo nos comunicamos con nosotros, pero cómo nos comunicamos con otras personas, y si en verdad cuando nos comunicamos, si en verdad escuchamos a la otra persona, si en verdad pausamos para escucharnos a nosotros mismos. Mercurio está teniendo esta retrogradación en el signo de Cáncer. Cáncer es el signo de la madre, que es regulado por la luna. Entonces, cuando tenemos esta energía de pausar un poco y poner atención, se trata de cómo nosotros mismos nos servimos como nuestras propias madres de dentro, ¿no? Ya seas hombre o mujer. Cómo nosotros creamos espacio sagrado para sentir, para entender lo que pasa dentro de nosotros, para tener compasión con nosotros y en torno tener compasión con otras personas. Okay? So the point of Mercury and the Sun meeting on Tuesday, usually that point, every retrograde period has that point. And what that means is that something comes to the surface. Something comes to the surface, and it's usually that week that happens. Throughout the week, not just that day, but throughout the week that happens, that something comes up. Then we have that in addition to Saturn going into its ruling sign of Capricorn. Saturn in Capricorn is the actual sign, is the actual energy of karma, is the actual energy of reaping what you sow. Things coming to justice. Now, Capricorn isn't necessarily the energy of justice, but, everything that has come up is asking for justice. And so that's two things right there. Mercury meeting the sun, Saturn in Capricorn, and then this eclipse. This eclipse, full moon eclipse in Capricorn. A full moon is, it's about everything that has been under the surface coming up for revision and something that can't be denied. Entonces, esta semana estuvo cargadísima de energía, Mercurio juntándose con el Sol, el signo de Capricornio en Saturno, Saturno regresando a ese signo de Capricornio. Esa energía de Saturno en Capricornio se trata de consecuencias, del karma, de que se ve lo que cosechaste antes. Y con todas las historias que están saliendo esta semana, se ve lo que mucha gente cosechó en un pasado, ¿no? Y luego se mezcla la energía del eclipse de luna llena en Capricornio, que otra vez Capricornio es esa energía de karma, de no olvidarse y no dejar que pasen las cosas sin arreglarse, sin hacerlas bien. So we have all of this, and of course, Roxanne and I spoke, and we wanted to bring up, the story of Vanessa Guillen. Vanessa Guillen. This story has been going on the entire eclipse season, and this week it seemed to, to just blow up even more, right? This week is when they found the remains, right?
True.
Saturn is the planet of bones.
Oh, wow.
Saturn is the planet of bones, and Saturn, the emphasis on Saturn and Capricorn this week is just so relevant. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. I don't think I've even heard that connection of the planet of bones, but for those of us who have read any articles and been following the story, which many have, we know how hard that hits, especially because of what they found and how disturbing that was. But you're right, the fact that it did come to light this week, really definitely shows how it connects.
Yeah. It's the revelations are undeniable in such a heavy week.
Mm-hmm.
Le estaba explicando a Roxanne, ella y yo estábamos platicando anteriormente sobre la historia de Vanessa Guillen. Y esta historia es una historia que se ha desenvuelto durante esta temporada de eclipses, que empezó en junio, a principios de junio. Entonces, esta semana fue cuando encontraron partes de ella, de su cuerpo, ¿no? De sus huesos, por ejemplo. Y le explicaba a Roxanne que Saturno es el planeta que de los huesos. Cuando, por ejemplo, si hay un doctor que usa astrología, por ejemplo, siempre va a ver Saturno en la carta de una persona para ver cómo sus huesos son afectados. Esta semana Saturno fue una semana muy activa para el planeta Saturno en Capricornio. Entonces es muy interesante ver esa conexión donde no solo es una semana de revelaciones, pero en realidad se está revelando los huesos de una persona. Yeah.
The other thing, that I've really been paying attention to as far as this particular story is all the other women that are now coming out and saying that this is very similar to what they dealt with when they joined any particular branch of the armed forces. It was Navy and Army and all different branches. And, I've been saying to people that I think this is the next wave in the Me Too movement. Mm-hmm. Before it was very focused on Hollywood, celebrities, politicians, and now we're looking at our armed forces, which would connect to Capricorn, right, as a structure. as
Absolutely.
a system, an establishment structure that has been in place for decades that is a big part of our society, and showing how, everybody talks so much about how important armed forces and veterans are, but yet do we really honor them? Do we really protect them? Do we really, take care of them and look out for them the way they have for us, whether they're veterans from, Vietnam or young women who have just joined the armed forces like Vanessa?
Right, right. And so I want to also bring to the spotlight that both Capricorn and Cancer are feminine energies. They're both feminine energies. And again, it was such a feminine heavy week. It was a lot of that coming up, And so what that does, yes, absolutely. The structure of the military and our country, the structure that is being, we're seeing it for what it is. We're seeing it for what it has been, not in its totality, obviously, but we're seeing
a part of it
that is very flawed. Okay. And we're seeing it from a woman's perspective. Yes, we're seeing it from a woman's perspective. It's so important because this is showing us the type of energy that's going to really dominate 2021 and on.
Okay, now I do my yes. Yeah, absolutely. And there's other things that I've been reading that have been saying, we're getting away from the patriarchal, system that we've lived in and going back towards the matriarchal system that many believe, like myself, was originally ruling and in power, was the feminine. And I feel like we are coming back to that.
Yes, yes. And in order to do that, we have to really see like what is really going on. We have to see the ugly. We have to see the ugly in order to not just redo entire systems from the surface and not just have people in authority tell us that they will do something about it and not, but really pushing forward and really restructuring from nothing, Le explicaba a Roxanne que la energía de Capricornio y Cáncer son dos energías femeninas, son dos signos femeninos. Y esta semana, especialmente con el eclipse de mañana, toda la semana ha sido de energía femenina, ha sido de mucha energía en Capricornio, de mucha energía en Cáncer. Y entonces estamos viendo cómo en ciertos sistemas, por ejemplo, estar en el Army o en la Navy, se está viendo cómo ese sistema no ha servido para la energía femenina. Por lo menos en ciertas partes de esos sistemas no ha sido justo para las mujeres. Y lo interesante es que ahora se está viendo todo eso desde la perspectiva femenina, desde la perspectiva de muchas mujeres, porque muchas mujeres han estado saliendo con sus historias, han estado revelando sus historias sobre abuso sexual. Y es muy interesante ver cómo este tiempo en el que estamos viviendo ahorita y lo que estamos viendo, cómo nos está preparando para la energía que se va a vivir del 2021 en adelante, del 2021 en adelante, que va a ser una energía mucho más femenina de lo que hemos estado viviendo por muchos años atrás. Ya no va a ser el patriarco, ya no va a ser tanta energía masculina. Va a ser más energía, más líderes femeninos. Se va a empezar a ver cómo eso se va a normalizar, que la energía femenina sea de líder en años por venir. Pero primero se tiene que ver todo lo que se está viendo. Primero, desafortunadamente, se tiene que ver todo eso y se tiene que ver cómo el sistema, de cierto modo, está está corrupto, está podrido de por dentro, y eso se tiene que limpiar antes de poder hacer algo nuevo.
I think, it's going to be really interesting to see how things play out over the next couple of months. But I think you were even saying over the next 6 months that we're going to be seeing a lot of what's happening now playing out over the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unfolding, this is just
the beginning.
just a revelation, how it unfolds and how systems are going to try so hard to maintain what obviously doesn't work anymore. And there's going to be a fight for that. And it's just how do you continue defending something that obviously no longer works in whatever system that is? So the resistance to change is going to be very clear, and it's going to be an uphill battle. But the Capricorn energy, which can represent on the one hand the system that wants to remain, but on the other hand it's also the sign and the energy of keep pushing up, don't give up, don't let up, keep pushing for a new system.
And I think that's exactly what her family is doing right now. And I hope they continue to, and I hope people continue to support them. There's actually a protest happening today for Vanessa in Los Angeles at Mariachi Plaza in 5 p.m. Today. So if anybody is interested in going out and showing support for her and her family and continuing to put those pressure on the authorities that need to be held accountable, we need to be doing that all over the country. And I'm seeing a lot of people willing to stand up for her. And at the same time, it's interesting how you were just saying about those people who are going to hold on to those old structures, no matter how much we see it doesn't work. And yesterday, I was on Instagram, and this account that I follow that normally wouldn't talk about these kind of things stopped and posted something about Vanessa and talked about her own experience in the military and being harassed and things like that. Maybe not to the extent of what Vanessa experienced, but still something that shouldn't be happening. And there was a guy in there making comments like just calling her a liar and saying that doesn't happen in the military. And I don't know what your experience is, but this sounds like a choice. I had to chime in because I got real irritated. I think she eventually blocked that guy because he didn't respond to my comments. And after what I wrote, I thought that he would. But, you can't deny somebody else their experience, especially when you're a man. And he was a white man over here telling a woman of color what she did and did not experience. So as frustrating as that can be, I think as women, we need to understand that is going to happen. And there are going to be men and even some women that are going to do that and defend this particular establishment that they feel, tied to. And, there is also, I'd like to mention, just bring it to the attention of everybody in case you're unaware, there is a social media movement that is hashtag I am Vanessa. I'm going to mispronounce her last name if I say it. Yes. Say it again.
Guillen.
Okay. And that's the hashtag that's going on. And I found a bunch of tweets on Twitter from all these different women in service. One woman going back 30 years to when she was in the Navy, talking about her being, raped on a Navy boat in the middle of the ocean. And they said if she said anything, they were going to throw her body overboard. This was a story from 30 years ago, 40 years ago, maybe. So these are things that have been going on. And there are people who are going to try and protect these establishments. And just as much as it might trigger us, I'm just saying it so that we expect it and know it. And when it's safe to call it out and you feel like you can, absolutely. If not, block the person. Whatever it means to take them out of that space and not allow that energy to hurt you and affect you.
Roxanne estaba explicando que ella estuvo vio un post en Facebook donde una muchacha compartió su historia sobre acoso sexual, y que hubo alguien, un hombre, que comentó que le estaba diciendo que eso no, bueno, que ella sufrió el acoso sexual en Army o Navy, no estoy muy segura, pero un hombre comentó que eso no pasa, que ella lo pidió, que era una mentirosa. Entonces, ese ejemplo sirve para la resistencia que va a haber, especialmente el resto de este año, la resistencia que van a tener ciertos establecimientos contra el cambio, porque mucha gente quiere que las cosas se queden igual. No quieren creer estas historias, no quieren creer que esto está pasando, que les está pasando a las mujeres. Entonces esa energía va a tener bastante resistencia a que la gente vea en lo que en realidad es, y al cambio. Pero la energía Capricornio en una parte puede ser que sí, en una parte puede ser que uno quiera que las cosas se queden igual, pero obviamente eso ya no puede quedarse igual. Muchas cosas no pueden quedarse igual. Y de la otra parte, la energía Capricornio se trata de impulsar, de empujar, de luchar hasta lograr algo nuevo, hasta lograr un nuevo establecimiento que sea mejor para todos, especialmente para la energía femenina. So I wanted to, this eclipse that's happening tomorrow culminates a 2-year cycle that started December, well, like a year and a half, 18-month cycle that started December 2018. Okay. December 2018 is when these Cancer Capricorn eclipses started. And everything just started shifting, everything started moving, establishments, people in power. I remember 2018 was when the Weinstein story broke. I remember that. That was right before, I believe that was right before, you know when it was? It was in November 2018. I remember that perfectly, actually, now. And it was like right before that Capricorn energy took off, and that set all of this off that has been unfolding in terms of abuse of power from authority to, coming up and completely redoing and completely questioning and completely delving into these stories. And it's been revolutionary. It's been transformative, And then again, the resistance. The resistance is, for as much as I can see this energy play out, and I can see it on a chart and on my laptop, the resistance against change doesn't cease to baffle me. Like, it just baffles me every single time. Like, how can you see this and not want it changed? How do you not believe it? It's truly, I don't know what to call it.
Well, I think in some cases, like the example I was giving of this guy who was harassing this girl on the post, where she's opening up and talking about her experience, is they're part of the problem. They don't see why change needs to happen or how this could ever happen, because maybe he's somebody who's doing that to somebody else, or was, I mean, that's what I hear. That's what it sounds like to me when I hear somebody so strongly defending their experience over somebody else's experience that they have no way to relate to, is that maybe this is a person who is perpetrating this and who is causing this to happen to other people. So of course they're not going to see it because they don't want to take any accountability. That's just what I think when I see somebody defending something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely
a because point how could they, like you said, how could they even find a way to justify it? But they do.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's see. Can I share the screen?
Oh, I don't know if you can. You can try. I actually have not done that on this platform since we're not on Zoom. Do you see an option?
That's all right.
You know what? I have an option to share screen as host, but you may not be able to. It's on the bottom next to where the mute is. I don't know if you see anything down there.
That's okay. I'll just explain. I mean, I wanted to share the chart for the eclipse, but really it's everything we've been talking about. One of the things that I saw, one of the connections that I saw in the chart of the eclipse is that it makes a connection to Uranus and Taurus. Uranus is the planet of innovation. It's the planet that rules Aquarius, which rules community and groups, okay? And forging towards something new. Uranus, like I said, is the ruler of Aquarius, and entering 2021, we're going to have full Aquarius energy. See, my point in continuing to mention 2021 is, one, to get you to understand that astrological events aren't isolated events and they aren't single events. They're not events that just happen on that day, and then if nothing happens, well, then astrology is fake. That's not
That is so accurate. Yes. Translate that so people know.
Estaba explicando que quería compartir con ustedes la carta del eclipse que va a suceder mañana, pero la verdad no sé cómo hacerlo aquí. Pero no importa. La conexión que yo veo que más importante, que es la más importante que va a tener el eclipse, es una conexión a Urano en Tauro. Urano es el planeta de la innovación. Es el planeta que regla el signo de Acuario. Acuario es el signo de comunidad, es el signo de traer a todo el mundo junto, ¿no? Es de trabajar en comunidad. Empezando el 2021, el 2021 es pura energía acuariana, es pura energía de Acuario. Entonces, mi punto en seguir mencionando eso es para hacerles entender, uno, que cuando ocurren o suceden eventos astrológicos, no es solo de ese día. Por ejemplo, el eclipse va a ser mañana, pero eso no quiere decir que esa energía solo existe mañana. Esa energía se extiende 6 meses más. Abre una puerta energética de 6 meses. Entonces no se trata de que el evento pase ese día, si nada me pasa a mí, entonces la astrología no sirve, la astrología no es en serio, no es de verdad. Y eso no funciona así, eso es muy importante saberlo, porque la astrología funciona en ciclos. Así como nuestra vida funciona en ciclos y tenemos etapas que son más difíciles que otras, esta es una etapa que nos está llevando a algo nuevo, a algo mejor, a algo más unido. So, yeah, I mentioned that because, astrology, like I said, it works in cycles. Our lives work in cycles. Some of our cycles are easier than others, and that's the point, and that's how you can track it with astrology. And this particular eclipse that's happening tomorrow, that's the last of the series of this Capricorn Cancer energy of the last 18 months, opens an energetic window for the next 6 months in order for all of this to be as cleaned up as possible, in order for us to go into this new energy, into this new Aquarian, almost all-inclusive energy of 2021. That, when you think about that, when you really think about that, that is revolutionary to follow that in 18 months, decades of systems can come to question, and that truths can be revealed in the way they have. I mean, if that doesn't blow your mind.
I don't know what will. Well, it definitely blows my mind. And, I love the thought of coming into Aquarius energy because for me personally, I think of Aquarius in a certain way. So, as we talked about, like in our first video, my sun sign is Sagittarius, but my moon sign is Aquarius. And, when I first found that out, I really, it was hard for me to wrap my mind around because I was just kind of surprised. And I wasn't really as familiar with the sign of Aquarius. And I thought, wow, I'm surprised that's my moon sign. And then I started doing some reading on what Aquarius in your moon sign meant. And I was like, whoa, this is so me. Because what I was reading was about how Aquarius is the rebel. Aquarius doesn't go with the flow. If everybody is saying we're going this way and doing this, I tend to want to go the other way and do something else. I've just always had that about me, and I've never really been able to explain it. But as soon as something is like the trend, I'm like, okay, no, I don't want to do that. And it's just a theme that I've seen. And once I read more about Aquarius, how it just it questions the system. It doesn't go with the flow. It asks questions. It says, wait a minute, why are we supposed to do this? Why are we supposed to believe that? And that really resonated with me. And I was like, okay, now I understand that. That makes sense to me now. So just something I always like to share about Aquarius and how I see the energy and how I feel it resonates with me. And maybe will resonate with a lot of other people as well who might always feel that inclination to go against the grain, but not really understand why.
Right. And so on a bigger spectrum, that's exactly what's going on. You're having movements of complete questioning. And in order to move into something new, in order to move into something that's more fair and inclusive to everyone.
Yeah.
Estábamos explicando que la energía de Acuario, como mencioné anteriormente, es la energía de más inclusiva, más de comunidad, ¿no? Y Roxanne, su luna natal está en Acuario. Y, o sea, no es coincidencia que ella esté envuelta en su comunidad completamente. Y para ella esto pasó en los últimos cuantos años. Y ver la luna, que significa cómo procesamos emociones y lo que es importante para nosotros a un nivel mucho más profundo, ver que la luna de Roxanne está en el signo de Acuario y ver todo lo que ella hace en su comunidad, cómo ella está conectada, cómo ella está tan apasionada a estas cosas, es un modo de ver la energía Acuario y ver una vez más lo que vamos a ver, lo que va a ser más normal del 2021 en adelante. So I was just explaining how, your moon in Aquarius is, we see what you do in your community. We see how involved you are, how passionate you are about what you do for the community. And so in a very simple way, that energy encapsulates what we're going to be seeing more of 2020, 2021 and on.
So there is hope. So everybody thinks like the world's going to end in 2020 with, like all the funny memes and stuff that are like, can we just skip to 2021 now? Because everybody thought 2020 was going to be so great. And, even though it's been different and it's been hard, and yes, there has been a lot of loss, in some ways it can still be great because of the truths that are being revealed and the things that we are learning that have always been there that maybe we didn't see, we didn't know about, and maybe for some didn't want to acknowledge. And now it's so in our face that we cannot, we really can't deny it anymore, even though there will be some folks who always will. I think the majority of people are like, just blown away by what they're seeing and hearing.
Right. And definitely. I wanted to also share the chart of the United States, but that's okay. I'll mention like two of the major points that I saw. So we can get natal charts for countries, for places. And so interestingly enough, there are a lot of countries around the world with a sun in Cancer, okay? So Cancer, again, represents the motherland, Okay, it represents home, our homeland. Okay, so without getting too technical, the sun in Cancer for the natal chart of the United States is at 13 degrees. So astrology works in degrees per sign, okay? This eclipse that's happening tomorrow is happening at 13 degrees Capricorn. So on the one hand, we have the moon. So this eclipse is going to be the moon opposing the sun. The moon in Cancer opposing, I'm sorry, the moon in Capricorn opposing the sun in Cancer, okay? Both at 13 degrees. Then you have the sun of the United States at 13 degrees Cancer. This means that this eclipse falls right on the sun of the United States. It falls, the revelations that are coming up falls right on what the United States stands for, how it shines in front of the world because of the sun. Okay?
Fascinating.
This isn't again just this event. This has been unfolding for the last 6 weeks. We're seeing and where things are being revealed about the United States as a nation, as the patriarchy, as all of these things that we have been proud of in the past, but we haven't fully been honest with the rest of the world, or even with the people with its citizens.
Yes.
With something as simple as teaching kids a certain part of history and not teaching them another part, with something as simple as that, to something which is not simple, to something as big as what happened to Vanessa Guillen in the armed forces.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is huge. And another thing that I found really interesting is that the moon for the United States chart is in Aquarius. So it's so interesting how the United States shines in a certain way, and how it has shined in a certain way is being revealed for what it truly is, but how it's really meant to function on an internal level, the moon level, needs to be at an Aquarian level. Again, Aquarius energy, this is where we're headed to. And it just so happens that the moon for the United States is in Aquarius. We're going to be working more from the moon than from the sun. I mean, I could go on to so much more. I don't want to confuse people. Just those two things, the sun and the moon. I mean, it's so fascinating. It's so revealing. And what's important to take into account too is that a lot of the stories that keep coming up during crucial astrological dates. So to me, when I see a certain person come up, when I see certain events come up, and then during certain astrological events, and then they want to deny something, I question it very much, because there's no way that I could 100% know. But it comes into question because if your karma was different, if how you've acted in the past was different, then you would either not be coming up at all, or you'd be coming up in a different light.
I think we should mention that other revelation that happened this week. And I know we were talking about how we weren't sure how to pronounce her first name. I have a solution. I think we should call her last name is Maxwell. So we're referring to the woman that was helping Jeffrey Epstein groom young girls for him to take advantage of. I think we should call her Madam Maxwell.
Maxwell. That works.
Because she's a madam. That's really what she's doing. Like, she's bringing in girls for this horrible man and his friends to abuse young girls. Like, let's just call her Madam Maxwell, because we weren't quite sure how to pronounce her name, because it's pronounced different than the way it looks. So yeah.
Right. And so I actually saw the Epstein documentary on Netflix a few weeks back. And so it really puzzled me how she hadn't been arrested or caught in any way, nothing, right? This week, with all of the 3 major events that I mentioned earlier in our talk, she comes to light. She gets arrested by the FBI. You know, this isn't a coincidence. These things are not coincidences, you know? And because of the heavy karma energy that we have right now, because of the heavy revelation energy that we have right now, and then watching that documentary, you know, again, people are going to have their biases, whatever, but
I think most people are pretty on board with this. Compared to other controversial issues going on right now, I think most people are all like, okay, Epstein is no good, and anybody that was associated with him. I just wanted to ask you to translate that in Spanish for a moment for our Spanish listeners, because I know so many people are following this story and watching the documentary. You know, I've been following the Epstein story and these pedophile rings for like the last 2 years. We started talking about this stuff probably back in 2018. So to now see this coming to light and these people getting arrested is definitely full circle. And we're going to say it right now. Madam Maxwell did not commit suicide. So if anybody comes out and says she committed suicide, I don't believe it, just like I don't believe Epstein did. And hopefully the other people who are involved in this will also be held accountable through her testimony. But we'll see. But if you could translate the part about her and Epstein, I think would be great, because so many people have been following that story.
Estamos platicando sobre la historia de Jeffrey Epstein y no sé si era su esposa, su novia, no estoy muy segura, pero tampoco sé cómo pronunciar su nombre, pero su apellido es Maxwell. Y Roxanne dijo que la vamos a llamar Madam Maxwell. Entonces, a ella la arrestaron, el FBI la arrestó esta semana, ¿no? Yo estaba diciendo anteriormente que cuando ciertos eventos astrológicos suceden y ciertas personas y ciertos eventos salen a la luz durante esos eventos astrológicos, es muy difícil negar por qué están saliendo a la luz. Entonces, en una semana tan kármica como esta, en una semana que se trata de pagar las consecuencias de sus acciones, sale que Madam Maxwell salió arrestada por todos los crímenes que ayudó a cometer con Jeffrey Epstein. Fireworks. Entonces es muy interesante ver en qué luz salen estas personas, en una luz donde son culpables o son inocentes, ¿no? Cuando ciertas personas salen o ciertos eventos salen en ciertos eventos astrológicos, va a salir la verdad. Entonces, es de poner atención a los eventos astrológicos, la energía, de qué se trata, para que uno pueda en realidad ver lo que está pasando, para no negar lo que en realidad se ve. Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how all of this unfolds, particularly within the next 2 weeks, next 2 or 3 weeks before we have another new moon. It's going to be really interesting.
I just hope that these, these poor girls that were taken advantage of and part of this ring, felt so I think, so upset when they said that he, committed suicide. I don't necessarily believe that, so I don't really know what the truth is. Neither do really any of us. We're so disappointed that they weren't going to be able to see justice, that they weren't going to be able to see this horrible man, go to jail and be held accountable for all the horrible things that were done to them. And there's so many girls, if you watch that documentary. And so this is an opportunity for them to get some kind of justice. And I'm really hoping that happens. So we'll see, though, because as we talked about, there are so many people there that are trying to protect these people, this system, and a lot of the people who are involved in these types of pedophile rings, are powerful people with money and status, and have ways to protect themselves, just like Epstein did. So, well, it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out, for sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, real quickly before we have to wrap up, on a more individual level, it's easier to explain some of the energy with things that people can relate to, right? But I've had a lot of readings over the last couple of weeks where, again, it's not just because of everything that's going on, but everything that's going on really solidified for a lot of people that change had been going on within them for a while. And so then them having to be at home and really with themselves, they had no other choice but to really consider what they want from now on, what structure within themselves is structure, belief system, the way of doing certain things, being in relationships, being in a certain home, how that has changed for your well-being, for their own well-being. The well-being, and that encompasses so much, but the term well-being is so popular right now, that people are beginning to put that before other things. People's priorities have changed. People's priorities have changed in a way that is so fascinating to me to watch and to talk to people, and to just, people are choosing happiness and, again, well-being over all of the superficial stuff, in layman's terms, that we've been so used to. And so if you're coming to terms with wanting to rebuild your sense of home, to rebuild your priorities and what is important to you, that's exactly what is happening right now. And so, because it's so new, it's such a new, different perspective for a lot of us, we don't see how it's going to unfold clearly. It's not something that we're necessarily familiar with, on a bigger scale. And sometimes it's more difficult to see that within ourselves. So understand that change within you is just at a very, very fundamental level right now, like deep within. And I hope that you're questioning your own systems. I hope that you're questioning the systems outside of you, the systems that tell us that we should live a certain way, that we should behave a certain way. Question it. Question how much of how you function comes from that conditioning. When you really do this, and I hope that people do, I hope that people are out there talking to someone else, talking to professionals about this, because this is where we're headed as a whole. This is where energy as a whole is being headed towards now. And it's, my hope is for people to be doing that.
And if you don't have somebody to talk to, or you don't feel like there is a safe space for you, you can reach out to Millie and ask her for a reading. I'm going to give you a little plug because I think it's important, and you're doing great work. And there's a banner going on across the bottom of the screen telling you to follow Astro Consciousness on Facebook, Astro _consciousness on Instagram, if you're interested in hearing more about all of this and Millie's work and how this all relates to astrology. Millie also does personal readings. You can reach out to her directly for that, whether on Facebook or Instagram, has your email and different information, way to get in contact with you. For those people who maybe they don't feel like they really have somebody that they could talk to about this and who would understand, you know, and obviously this is your business and this is a service that you offer, but you know, I think it's important for people to know that that those options are there and that's part of the work that you do. So yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course. And then I was going to say, before we do go, I would love it if you translated that last part in Spanish, just about the readings you've been doing, what you've been seeing, and people really taking the time to look within.
Right. En un nivel más grande, en un nivel de nuestra comunidad, por ejemplo, es muy claro ver la energía que estamos experimentando todos, ¿no? Pero a un nivel más personal, esencialmente está pasando lo mismo. Está pasando que estamos cuestionando nuestras prioridades, que unas cosas que eran importantes antes ya no son tan importantes hoy. Cosas fundamentales dentro de nosotros ya no son iguales. Y ese es el punto de toda esta energía, el cuestionarnos si el modo en que hemos estado viviendo nos sirve a nuestra salud mental, espiritual, psicológica. Cuestionar nuestras formas de pensar que a veces son tan arraigadas, ¿no? Cuestionar los sistemas fuera de nosotros que nos dicen cómo vivir, qué pensar, qué hacer, qué no hacer, qué comer, cuestionar todas esas cosas y ver si nosotros estamos actuando de nuestros fundamentos o los fundamentos que nos han querido enseñar. Entonces, en ese cuestionamiento se empieza a crear una nueva sensación de hogar dentro de nosotros, una nueva sensación de tenernos a nosotros mismos y de crear algo nuevo, donde somos más inclusivos y más compasivos, no solo con nosotros y nuestro proceso, sino que con la demás gente. Yo puedo decir esto así como si nada, pero el que uno pase por tanto cambio dentro de uno es bastante fuerte. Entonces yo espero que si puedes hablar con alguien profesional, que lo hagas. Espero que tengas a alguien con quien procesar todo lo que está pasando dentro de muchas personas. He tenido tantas consultas en las últimas semanas en las cuales la gente está sintiendo todo esto. Si quieres tener una cita conmigo, por favor, aquí tienes mi información. Mándame un email o por las redes sociales. Si no quieres una consulta conmigo, de verdad, te lo digo de corazón, ve a hablar con alguien. Habla con alguien, con un coach, con un psicólogo, con alguien profesional que te ayude a procesar todo lo que está pasando. Porque en realidad, aunque la gente quiera regresar a trabajar, regresar a la escuela, regresar a lo normal, todo lo que nos está pasando fuera y adentro es muy fuerte y hay que tener el espacio y hay que darnos nosotros nuestro espacio, nuestro lugar, nuestro respeto para procesar todo lo que estamos sintiendo, más que nada. Yeah.
And then before we go, if there's any last tips or dates or just kind of things to look out for, I was going to throw out there earlier, you know, a friend of mine yesterday got into a little bit of a car accident in a parking lot. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, that's very Mercury retrograde. Mm-hmm. Because I think because there's so much mix up with communication. So maybe you're parked in a spot and there's somebody behind you and they don't see you and you guys don't acknowledge each other, which is a form of communication. Right. And somehow there's a little fender bender or a little accident. So, right. You know, if something like that happens, Obviously, it's upsetting, it's frustrating, but it is kind of likely to happen during these times. Don't beat yourself up too much about it. And, oh my gosh, why did I do this or do that? Unfortunately, these things happen, but that happened to a friend of mine, just made me think these are kind of some of the things that you might see happen, but hopefully not. Hopefully it'll be, won't be as much of that, and different things that maybe people could look out for.
I mean, I think that awareness in awareness is such a huge thing, and awareness in present moment, like really being present in what you're doing, in whom you're talking to. That, especially with all of the energy going on right now, is so important. I wish that I could give more of because I think that people now expect a lot of bullet points, a lot of guidelines, a lot of tell me what to do and I'll do it and everything will be all right. No, that's not. That's people avoiding to do any work on their own. So yeah, if I can leave you with one thing, is learn awareness in the present moment. That's never bad advice, but that's the point of Mercury retrograde. That's what that's what those retrogrades tried to teach us several times a year. Presence and presence in what you do, whether you're doing the dishes, whether you're backing out of a parking spot, whether you're talking to someone. Especially practice being fully present when you're talking to someone, especially if they're close to you, like a friend or a family member or your child. Practice being fully present, making them the most important person in that moment, and see how that changes. See what that does. See how things click. It may sound a little woo-woo. People don't, people want more hard facts type of things, and that's not really what I do. I'm not going to give people, things that I don't really believe in or that I don't really practice myself. I'm going to be very honest about what I think should be, how this energy should be taken advantage of.
Well, the bottom line is we all have to do the work ourselves, and I think what Millie's referring to is, there's a lot of accounts on Instagram. They give you tips and hits and, hints and things like that to look out for with astrology. And those might be nice guidelines, but at the same time, it's still not going to address the internal work that we all have to do. And I think just being present is huge. It's something that, I've practiced as well. And sometimes I catch myself when I'm not, fully present somewhere. We have our minds going and all kinds of other things are happening. But especially, I think I love the example of talking to your kids and, not checking your phone and not, trying to cook and do all the things that us moms are trying to do, but to really just fully be present for our children and family and friends, that we're here fully listening to you is so important and has been really helpful for us to just be aware. It helps bring us, aware, and it helps us just live in this moment right now. So instead of worrying about what happened yesterday and what's going to happen tomorrow, I think being present is just about this moment right here.
Right. Yeah. And it can be in the simplest of ways. And it's truly something that is life-changing when practiced enough over time.
And you'll see how grateful and thankful that person is that you're giving your full attention to, how much they appreciate that or how much they needed that. Somebody to really listen to them and not just be checking their phone or thinking about what they're going to say next, and just letting that person just vent, in any way that they need to. So I think that's really important. Like we said, this is the last eclipse of the season, not the year, but the season. And we are working on trying to come back in a couple of weeks, possibly bringing you guys some different content, something we need to discuss a little bit more and plan out. But we're definitely hoping and planning to come back in 2 weeks with some more content that can help educate you and inform you on astrology and how to use it and understand it. So thank you again, Millie, for being with us.
Yeah,
our third episode. It's been great. If this conversation has been interesting and you want to know some of the other information that we've referenced, go back to the other 2 episodes. They are on the La Comadre Facebook page. You'll see an episode from exactly 2 weeks ago today, and then 2 weeks before that. And those are the 3 that we've got so far if you want to catch up. And then, like I said, hopefully we'll be back in a couple of weeks. So thank you so much for joining me in this discussion. It's been very refreshing from some of the other conversations maybe going on right now. So Thank you, Millie.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we will see you later. Thank you.